flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 14 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. If this is your first time listening, each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of very special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the rain-delayed Worth 400 on Monday at Dover Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back for yet another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast, and I'm proud to report for about the 3rd week in a row, there's a lot of momentum behind this number 12 team with solid finishes stacked back to back to back, and really happy that we get to talk about another one in this week's episode.
Yeah, 2 things. Another great race run from the top down. The strategy, the setup, the driver, the pit crew, all hitting on all cylinders, doing everything correctly. And the second thing is, how many of you watched it from work today, or tried to watch it from work, or tried to listen to it on on the app and so on and so forth. I had one of the guys at work, we were at lunchtime because, right at noon there. And he was like, how are you doing that? And I've got, the app pulled up, and I pay the extra for the scanner report, but on the app, you can watch the in-car cameras even without paying the extra. The only difference is they put a commercial in there every so often. I didn't know that. I never realized that because I've never dealt with it. So yeah, following along wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. But it really helps when the guy you're following, stays out front most of the day and does a great job and has a great race.
Yeah, not only the folks that were able to follow from work, just by watching, some of the photos of the stands, like it seems like the folks out there in Dover turned out on a Monday, and I guess, 2nd year in a row, I think, where this race has been pushed to a Monday. So they all stayed out there. Maybe the campers couldn't get out of the parking lot. Maybe that's what it was. But there's a pretty big crowd on hand for sure.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks that's right next to a casino.
That'll do it.
So, what'd you do Sunday because you couldn't race? Well, we went to the casino, and then, we already had the tickets, and we were so broke we couldn't travel. So, let's watch the race on Monday.
But I was definitely one of those folks that had the race pulled up on work, had one of my AirPods in, and scheduled my break just at the right amount of time to get to watch, most of one of the stages and check in our Team Blaney Discord chat, which had 4 or 5 people in there going strong, we usually get, around 20 or so people. So a little bit fewer amount in there this week, but it was still pretty interesting chat all the way throughout the race there. What did you think of the racing there at Dover? I mentioned that last year, it was pretty good because, we talk all the time about, what are the next tracks on our list that we want to go to. And if you asked me maybe 4 years ago, Dover probably wouldn't have been on that list. Last year's race was pretty solid. My opinions of this race, I thought, the top 5 hung around each other pretty much all race long. The rest of the field kind of got strung out. I think it benefited from the metric setting the lineup because you had a lot of good cars starting from the back that had to pass a bunch of people. You had Kyle Busch, which we'll probably briefly talk about, getting a speeding penalty going to the back, coming up to the front, and then having a bad strategy that set him to the back again. So that was unfortunate, but I thought there were some comers and goers. Obviously, I think you said maybe my glasses are a little bit rose tinted because the 12 car was strong all day. But I thought the racing was pretty good. And I said, you know what, this might put Dover back up on my list of tracks that I want to go to.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you've got the lineup set by the matrix, you're going to get that first stage where it all depends on how you were set up and how well your setup was. And then then you get to that first, the competition caution in this case, and you figure out what adjustments to make. And then, to the end of that stage, you see a lot more coming and going. So yeah, it definitely had that aspect of it. And Ryan was definitely stout enough at the beginning of the whole thing where he held his position or gained a spot or two or only lost a spot or two and got it back. But yeah, it did get strung out for a little while. We had green flag pitting during both the second and third stage. So that kind of, I like it for Ryan, because I feel that they're a strong team. He's strong at conserving tires and running strong late in a run on old tires. So, I thought it was very beneficial for the 12 team to run that kind of race. Once again, though, I'm not watching the whole race overall, like maybe like a fan on TV just watching just TV either. So that kind of makes it different too, because the TV will show you all the action that they can show you. So I was pretty encouraged by it, though.
So we have already mentioned that the lineup was set by the metric, and normally you would think that meant the whole weekend leading up into the race was washed out, but that's not true. We actually did get a little bit of practice in before this race.
Yeah, we got Group B on Saturday morning, and excuse me, we usually don't have. I usually don't really write much notes for the other group right away, but Group A right away, the 3 hit the wall. So ouch, and the 99 spun out, and then it was just it's a little scary because you're starting to see some things that remind you of the beginning of last year. In Group B, the 43 spun out. Ryan started running in traffic right off the bat, so he wasn't out there right away to put a quick lap down. But he was like P4 in his session, and about 10th best overall after 6 laps, because they combined the times as the practice was going on. And they did come in for some changes. And actually near the end of the practice, Josh talks about there's some mist coming down on the track, and they tell Ryan that the right front might be corded from when they come out or come in, and they ran about 14 laps there, and but with 3 minutes left to go back in, it started raining, and I saw a couple comments. It was like, why did they do that? Why didn't they go? And it was like, well, it was like immediate rain, and Ryan was real happy that he didn't get up to speed, because he literally thought if he went barreling down into the rain there, he would have probably lost the car. So then they didn't wait long to cancel qualifying. They knew they were on a time thing where they were trying to make sure they get the Xfinity race in. So pretty much within the next couple minutes they cancel qualifying, and we get that P3 start from the Matrix. So
yeah, I was okay with that.
yeah, I was more than glad in that. Although I will say this much, you get 5 or 10 lap averages, and they were pretty good on a 5 lap average. And like I said, in their grouping, they were like about the 4th best in the Group B. So I would have assumed that he probably would have gotten himself into the top 10 and had a shot at the pole, and then who knows from there. But P3 guaranteed spot up front. So we go ahead, and of course it gets rained out on Sunday, and actually Saturday night or Saturday somewhere along the line, they moved up the start time to begin with because they were trying to fit it in the window, and then they got to Sunday, and I think it was like 10 or 10:30 in the morning. They decided that there was going to be no window, which kind of like gave everybody like, well, what do we do today? Go mow the lawn? Or
I know, it was like we woke up early on a Saturday or on Sunday, which we don't normally do. And then, yeah, like you said, by 10:30, 11, we already knew there wasn't going to be a race. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, for the most part, I think the both of us set our Sundays aside, at least most of them. Sometimes I go on some trips there, but yeah, I just had like, I don't know what to do today. I'm like, do I go clean out my car from the Talladega trip? What do I I'm not really sure. Normally maybe I would have popped on iRacing or something, but I didn't even do that. I think I was just like depressed that the race wasn't on, and trying to figure out the logistics of today or Monday. Like, all right, how am I going to be able to watch this thing? Because Ryan's starting up front and they have some momentum here. They seem like they had a pretty decent car. Like, I don't want to miss this race. So I think I was working out some of the logistics, and then I don't know, watched Star Wars the rest of the day.
So we get to Monday at noon, and we have stages of 120, 250, and 400, 9 sets of tires, and a fuel range of 92 to 100 laps, but they're never going to get that far. They're usually going to go on tires. Of course, the 3 cars to the rear, because he did go to the backup car. They choose pit stall 40, which is behind the 38 car. This becomes important at the competition caution at lap 20. So the leader, of course, the 8 car takes the top or the outside, and the high lane takes off, of course, a little bit better, and Ryan's down in the low lane there. It sorts out to about 4th there, but by lap 18, he gets up to 3rd right before they go ahead for this competition caution. They get to the competition caution. They're pitting in P3, 4 tires. And that's why I mentioned the 38 here, because where Ryan comes in, hits the pit stall, goes through the pit stop, the 38 hasn't made it yet. And he comes just at about the time that Ryan has to leave. So Ryan had to hold up for the 38. So the 38, he can go around him once he got to his. So the stop ends up being like 12.045 seconds. But the reality is a second and a half of that may have been waiting for the 38 car to come around him. Now, luckily, the rest of the race, the 38 disappears to 1, 2, 3, 4, however many laps down he ends up pitting, on the next lap around when it's under caution. So he comes out 7th here, but a couple of the cars in front of him took 2 tires.
Yep.
2. And the 8, of course, gets a penalty here for speeding. So this kind of like totally wrecks his day and changes his world and ends up putting him in positions later on he don't want to be in. So we restart at lap 28. The 6 is the leader now. And literally during the restart, the 42 spins out on the backstretch, bringing out another caution. Ryan's up to 5th here. At lap 34, we stay out. And at lap 34, we get another restart with the 24 leading. The 99 spins. The 3, the 78, and the 8 actually gets a little bit of this too. Ryan's up to 4th here. Once again, they stay out. And we restart lap 42. The 24 leads. Ryan's up to 4th, and he gets to 3rd on the restart. At lap 81, the 1 car hits the 51. Was it the 51 or 15?
It was the 15 this time.
It was a 15. Okay. And he spins him, and then he collects the 5 car while he's spinning, which ruins the 5's day.
Someone I saw, you remember when the 1 car won at Circuit of the Americas last year? It was almost like a combo shot. The 48 and the 16. This one was like a combo shot, 15 into the 5, and then he kept on going. Larson wasn't too excited about this. He mentioned the fact about, this is just the first stage. Ross on the radio kind of did his typical, I didn't mean to do that. Oh man. Yeah. Which I think that's a genuine feeling, but he needs to know that going into this. And I had a talk with somebody about this race and about Ross specifically. And I'm like, it's really funny. Like, as aggressive as he is and the moves that he makes, people like to, romanticize the drivers of the past that were aggressive like that and made very similar moves like that and, gained fans that way. But the difference that I think is that Ross is making these moves in the wrong times of the race. If this was, while the leaders are in lap traffic with like 5 laps to go and that happens because he's trying to make a pass for the lead, then that makes sense. When this happens, in the first stage of a relatively long race on this mile track, you just got to pick and choose the times that you're going to be aggressive. And, one more corner, he was going to blow past that 15 anyway. I don't want to say it's a positive because it's not positive for anyone that's a Larson fan, but, going into this race and based on practice and history, a lot of people thought the 5 car was going to be the car to beat, and he didn't even get the chance. So, yeah.
We're P3 here as we're pitting 4 tires. It's a 10.677 second stop. Now, he ends up 5th for the restart here. So he lost a couple positions, but the problem was 2 teams took like 2 tires, the 1 and the 45. The 8 stayed out completely, which this is not a good move.
No, this is what I was saying. I think earlier I mentioned that they are gifted the pole, then they squander it by going, by speeding, but he was actually driving up through the field before this, and then they make this call that I didn't think was necessary.
Yeah, and Yeah, it ends up ruining his day as it goes on, because he ends up just getting kind of plowed over here at the restart, lap 90. By lap 111, Ryan's up to fourth. At lap 115, he's up to third here. And lap 120, the 24 wins the stage. Ryan ends up third. Stage points, first stage of the day. They're pitting 4 tires here, a 10.857 second stop. The 6 gets a penalty on this. He was running really well, and he kind of ruins his own day. And Ryan's up to second now. And they run that pit road speed. I should go back here because I didn't write it down, but they run that pit road speed before the race. And Ryan's lights is like usually 8 red or 8 green, somewhere in that range. Okay. And I think green being a little faster. And today he does it, goes back on the track, and usually Jonathan will tell him if there was a segment or an area or anything like that. And what he asked Ryan today was, not only was there was a segment near the start finish line, but were you over? In other words, were you over on your lights to begin with? Then we know it's on you. Ryan's not really. So then what they do is they tell him to back it off. So now that at that certain point on the track, they want to be like 8 red instead of 8 green. Because I guess that's a little slower. So this is stuff they work on, and being aggressive on pit road is important to some extent, because you want to gain a position or at least hold serve with your pit crew and so forth. But for Brad and for the 8 car today, it just pretty much took them out of the race. And Brad ends up with a decent finish, I believe. But how much better could it have been if he didn't get shuffled during this sequence?
I don't think that's his first speeding penalty of the year. I think they've been caught multiple times, just like the 8 has.
Yeah. So we restart lap 130 with the 24 leading. At lap 178, the 10 actually holds up Ryan, and the 1 car passes. So now Ryan's in third. And at lap 194, we get some green flag pitting. And this is a 4 tire stop here, of course, and 9.905 second stop, which is on a green flag pit stop, is really awesome. At lap 202, they're in their P3 here as it's kind of cycled. The 1 car, though, now took the lead on this pit cycle. And the 1 car takes stage 2. Ryan ends up third. So they come in and pit at the end of the stage here, 4 tires. And it's 11.978 stop here, but he holds serve. They're P3 coming out. So, it sounds like it's a little slower stop, but it's obviously about the same as everybody else on pit road here. The restart lap 259, the 24 leads, and the 19 passes Ryan here. So Ryan ends up in fourth. Now this is the 19 car comes alive here, and that's, ends up from here to the end of the race, showing off what he's got. Lap 290, Ryan does pass the 24 car to third. And what happened to the 24 here, I believe, from what I read online, was a tire was maybe coming a little loose or coming down or something. And he's just started losing position after position. The 1 is, of course, leading the 19 here, and Ryan is in third behind them. At lap 327, we get green flag stops here. Ryan comes in about 2 laps later, and he has a 10.844 second stop here. The one cycles to the lead here, but Ryan is still in third, and it pretty much stays like that for the 3 of them. And I'm trying to watch lap times when I have a chance to, trying to watch, because I think I'd actually gotten home by this point, watching lap times and watching traffic, because the rest of this race becomes like that. It becomes traffic. And the 1 car chasing Truex. And at one point, I believe the 5 car gets in between them.
Yep. He slows them down.
Slows them down. So I'm watching Ryan and like, wow, Ryan's starting to gain on the 1 car. And it's like, oh, that's why, because the 5 car put his nose in there between them. It's nothing with the lap times or somebody losing their tires or anything like that. Everybody this race did a real good job of tire management. But yeah, I think he paid him back there, basically.
He did, and then actually the 54 too. So the 54, there was a point when he was gaining on Ryan in fourth, and then they realized they were way off on their fuel. Something happened with their fueling in their last stop, and they told him he was 7 laps. So the 54 basically just slowed down, got lapped, and he also almost didn't stay in front of the one as long as the 5 did, but he definitely held him up again there also as well. I know we were chatting a little bit before the race about that pit stop that happened during this green flag sequence, and how when Ryan went in, he was probably about 2.5 to 3 seconds behind the leaders. When he came out, he was like closer to 5 behind, and I didn't know if it was the stop or just getting on and off pit road. But the other thing I didn't think about was this fact that you said he waited 2 laps after the leaders did, so they're out there on fresher tires probably, and probably got around a little bit quicker. Maybe they had a little bit better, ease with traffic as they came out than Ryan did, because I know the camera was on Ryan when he was exiting the pits, and it seemed like there's a lot of cars in his way when he was getting back up on the track. So, but in the end, I mean, what we're going to go to here in your next segment here, it doesn't matter because they end up restacking the field. But really interesting what happened here. The 19, I think, is leading at this point, as you mentioned. I don't know if you caught this because you weren't watching the TV broadcast, but there was another classic James Small and Martin Truex Jr. argument earlier on in this race where Truex didn't like the strategy that they did or didn't like the pit stop they had, and Small gave him another one of those classic shut up and drive moments. So that was interesting, and they talk about this stuff after the race. They're dynamic, and they always say they're totally fine, and I think it's just the way they operate, because I really feel like if Truex had a problem with this crew chief, he would have got him replaced real quick. But here they are being relatively successful today up until this point, but they still had one of their little classic spats that gets caught on audio and then broadcast out to us. So lap 385 we get a caution for the 22, and it was a pretty bad hit. I think he blew a tire. And I don't know, I didn't even see, did they get a chance to interview him or even talk to him? Or I don't know if I missed the interview or not, but there's a couple hits in this race I'm very honestly interested in. I don't think NASCAR decided to send any cars back to R&D or anything, but the 77 car was probably one of the first ones this year that backed into the wall pretty hard in that really early crash. And I can't remember whether Joey hit with his nose or his rear when he had his issue here, but I'm interested to know what that 77 car looked like, because in this off season, that's where they took all the team's chassis and readjusted the rear clips to try to make them compact a little bit more when they made impact. And it did look like the rear end of the car crunched a little bit, but that was the first thing I thought was, man, hopefully he's going to be okay with that impact, and maybe they can learn something from it if the officials are able to kind of look at that car. I don't think this might give us the opportunity when you're talking about Joey in this crash to say, man, the 2 and the 22 were way off. I'm not sure if Jonathan and Ryan decided to go in a different direction. Ryan said leading into the race and post race that they worked really hard as a team on Dover because they thought it was really important to get good there, because 13 starts at Dover. Ryan has never finished in the top 5, and only had a couple of top 10s really early in his career.
The way that he put it was not that they concentrated on it, but they went a different direction.
Yeah.
And that means something totally different too. Yeah, they can concentrate on all they want, but they went a different direction, and that means something about the setup. They did something different with the setup of the car. Oh yeah, and it obviously paid off for them. Now, whether the other 2 cars did that or not, I don't know, because a lot of the cars that ended up starting near the back of the field, they just end up getting lapped within. They're in dirty air. They're trying to pass people, but they end up getting lapped within 40 or 50 laps, of just green flag racing. So.
And that's the 2. The 2 ended up, I think, around 4 or 5 laps down. I think it just seemed to be on speed. The 22 was courting right front tires really bad, and they had to actually keep coming in and changing them. So that's definitely a setup off the truck that maybe it was a camber problem that they weren't able to actually fix at the track. So but yeah, it was just so weird, to see the rest of Team Penske there really out to lunch, and Ryan's setup seems like Jonathan really nailed it this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So here the discussion begins right away. Now, Jonathan, first off, gives him 2 options. Says body armor or snap-on. Once again, these change week to week, so we don't exactly know what he means. Ryan says he wants to see what the leaders do, which makes sense. He's got 2 guys in front of him. They ask some questions about how many cars are on the lead lap. He says, okay, well, I think at that point there was like 9. There are going to be a bunch of them trying to do a wave around, but they're not going to be a factor. And he wanted to know how many laps they think we'll have left. A green flag, racing. He says, well, it's going to take a lap or 2 to clean this up, and then it's where it's at. They're not going to open pit road right away. They figure probably about 7 laps when they go green. So when they do open up pit road, and there's cars like that are lap down or 2 laps down in between them, so he's got to close the gap, which he rushes and does before they get to pit road. But he does see the 2 cars in front of him pitting, so he decides to pit too. Now, as they come into the box, Jonathan says 2 tires. So I don't know if they really didn't communicate that ahead of time. They just said they were ready to. Jonathan told Ryan, "We're ready no matter what you decide." But they do come in for the 2 tires. Everybody that's on the lead lap, or at that point, that's not a wave around, comes in and pits. But the 2 tire stop is 4.872 seconds. This does beat the 1 car off of pit road, but he's still behind the 19 because the 19 took 2 tires. I noticed the TV broadcast talked about how 2 tires may have been all you really needed. Jonathan says they pumped up that right hand side tires a little bit because it's going to be a short run. And they restart at lap 393 here, of course, but he's below the 19 here, so 7 laps to go. And
this was fun.
It was. It really was good. It was good, hard racing. Once again, I'm watching I was home by this point watching the TV, but then I've got the in-car on the other TV, and the in-car is pretty cool to watch because you see nothing next to him at certain points, and you realize that he almost got clear. I think 2 laps in, he goes into 3 and 4, and he is 3/4 of the way past Truex. Jonathan, Josh can't give him the clear because he's not clear. And Ryan raced him clean, and that's probably the best thing that happened is he raced him clean because he could have collected both of them by trying to go ahead and get in front of him. He probably would have got hooked.
Yep.
He literally probably would have got hooked in that right rear because that's what they tell you to do if somebody gives you the right rear like that. So, but by the end of the third lap, the 19 had already gotten around him, and then the 1 car was on 4 fresh tires, and he made his way around Ryan also. So.
Ryan actually kept pace with the 1
Yeah.
toward the end of this race, and the 24 and 11 were coming. And I actually was worried for about half a lap that those 2 were going to catch him, but then Ryan kind of pulled away from them, was actually pretty close to the 1 here before the end of this race. So it's interesting. You're talking about him racing clean. Truex in his post-race interview thanked Ryan for racing clean. I feel like if the 1 would have taken 2 tires and lined up side by side with the 19, who knows, we might be looking at a victory right now, because I feel like the 1 wouldn't have raced as clean as Ryan did.
No,
I had the normal reaction to which I don't know if this is a bad thing or not, but in our Discord and folks that respond to our social media posts, lamenting like, oh, I wish Ryan would be more aggressive. I'm like, he was very aggressive on this restart, aggressive up to the point of crashing somebody, which I think is a good thing. But it's like, I don't, he's just not that kind of driver. And I don't really necessarily want to be celebrating too many wins where he destroys somebody else just to get the victory. I thought the way that he ran Truex was, I don't know. He said, Ryan at one point said, I sent it in as far as I could. He sent it in as far as he could. And, he just got beat. So, I don't know. It was exciting though. This is the second or third time this season where Ryan's, started the last restart on the front row with a shot to win. And I think one of the last ones where he had a shot to win there was at Bristol, and he got completely taken out. So at least that didn't happen in this situation. So, but finishes off a day of 3s though, right?
Yeah, 3-3-3. I saw that you put up a nice post about honoring Earnhardt.
Doing it for Dale.
Doing it for Dale. As you go to the point standings here and point this stuff out, about the top 5s or top 10s for the year. I even forgot about that. That Bristol should have been another top 10 actually. When you think about it, but they should have been
top 5 at least. There's a couple places that are like that. So
Truex does win. Ryan finishes 3rd. Really solid day for the whole team. Jonathan definitely, once again, like he said it early in the year when we had him on the podcast, that doesn't matter if they practice or not, they're ready to go. And they had practice, but boy, the setup was perfect. They held their position, held their ground, and a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and who knows.
And that's another big turnaround for Ryan at another racetrack. We've seen him in the last couple of years. Now, this is only the first one of a success, but the last couple of years where like Richmond was one of his worst tracks, and all of a sudden he's basically finished in the top 10 multiple times since then. Going into this race at Dover, Ryan had an average start of 11.5, an average finish of 18th. And he was on a streak here for the last 6 races where he finished 12th or worse. He only ever had 2 top 10s at this track total. The first one coming in his debut when he finished 8th, another one in 2018 where he finished 8th. But after that, it was pretty dismal outside of, some top 15 finishes here. So this is finishing third is his first top 5 in 13 starts at this track. So I'm hoping that's the beginning of another turnaround at another track here where we can say that, he has a chance to contend when they hit there next year, assuming it's still on the schedule. Let's take a look at the point standings. And this was a really good, we mentioned stage points, third in both stages. I think he gained a total of about 50 points in this race today. Gained 3 positions in the standings from 8th to 5th. Also gained 11 points to the leader, who is now Ross Chastain. So going into this race last week, he was back 55 points. Now he's back only 44 points to the leader, which 11 races in, I think that's pretty impressive that the top 10 is as close as it is. So if you want to look at the top 10 in the point standings right now, and this is just the driver standings, when they show it on TV, they're going to automatically take all the winners and push them up to the top. We're only talking about drivers' point standings as they run. Chastain's in first, Bell is second, Harvick is third, Truex is fourth, Ryan is fifth, Reddick is sixth, Hamlin is seventh, Kyle Busch is eighth, Keselowski is ninth, and Kyle Larson is in the 10th position. Keselowski there in ninth. That was another second race in the row where both RFK cars were finished up front, both finished in the top 10 here. Interesting to see them picking up speed in this season compared to where they were at last year. Talking about the points earlier on, you're looking at where folks were at. Harvick is minus 38, Truex is minus 40, Ryan is minus 44. You think there's a legitimate shot here that Ryan, just a solid run at Kansas, could maybe overtake those guys in the standings, even though Truex just won a race, but still.
Yeah, past both of them this week, probably. The Truex part of it is they're probably relaxed a little bit now because they have won a race. But Harvick had a good run at a couple races early in the year, but now I don't know what's going on. Stuart Haas is starting to, RFK racing of all the Fords has actually been the ones the last couple of weeks that have showed up. So who knows? Because this week coming up will be a mile and a half, and everything will be different. But Brian, just the way they're running and the consistency and the way the team is operating right now, they're right at that point where they need to be, and like I said, they'll pass both those guys probably in the next week or so.
Yeah, and honestly, they have a ton of momentum. I think I said this at the top of the show. Bristol Dirt, they finished 23rd, but they were in contention to win that race up until the last handful of laps. Martinsville 7th, Talladega 2nd, also had a really good shot to win last week at Talladega. And then he comes out of here at Dover with top 3 finishes across the board and finishes 3rd in the race. So it seems like they've turned the momentum, because the prior, including that Bristol finish, they were on a run there of 21st, 26th. They finished 23rd at Bristol, but that doesn't really, like I said, talk about how the race went at Bristol. So, but then, since then, 7th, 2nd, and 3rd. So they're kind of they need to take the reins of this momentum here and head to Kansas this weekend and have another really good start. So really good start, really good run, really good finish, and hopefully picking up that victory. So why don't we talk about Kansas here and talk about the on TV this weekend report. The action starts on Saturday at noon with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series practice and qualifying on FS1 a little bit later in the day, as opposed to what last week when it was up 10:30 in the morning was practice before the rain started there. This weekend though, Saturday 5 p.m. Eastern time, NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying from Kansas on FS1. And if you're interested in tuning in for the Truck Series race, it rolls off at 8 p.m. Eastern time for the Heart of America 200 at Kansas Speedway. Maybe check out and see what Zane Smith is doing there with Ryan's Sunday spotter, Josh Williams. on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern times when NASCAR race day kicks off on FS1, and 3 p.m. Eastern times when the coverage switches over to the Cup Series race, Advent Health 400 Kansas Speedway on FS1. This race at Kansas, I think, is another one of those races that Ryan has a really good opportunity. It's not necessarily statistically one of his best tracks, but they do tend to run pretty well here, especially even just as a company. So taking a look at Ryan's stats here, 16 starts at Kansas, an average start of 10.3, an average finish of 16.4. So that's where I was kind of saying it's not necessarily his best. It's not even a top 15 average finish, but he does pretty well there. He has a pole there back in 2017. 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s, though, in those 16 starts. His last few starts here, though, outside of, I'll go back to 2020 here. 20th, 7th, 21st, 37th, 12th, and 9th. And if you go back to that one race in 2021, I believe he was involved in a crash. I don't know if it's that same race or not, where he and Larson start on the front row, and Larson kind of drives him into the wall at the end when he had a shot at the win. He's led laps at this track. Previously, going all the way back to 2017, he led 83 laps in a race. In 2018, 54 laps. Hasn't led too many laps in the last 5 or so races there. But I do think this is an opportunity with all the momentum that they have. Like I said, 3 straight top 10s, including this top 5 last week. Those two top 5s, really, Talladega, and then this 3rd place finish at Dover. I'm hoping that they just have a really strong effort in qualifying and just a really strong race. Let's lead some more laps.
Yeah, this will be, like I said, a mile and a half. We haven't done a mile and a half in a while. Go back to the last mile and a half that they've done and see what they've done.
Isn't it weird to say that? We haven't run a mile and a half in a while. They're like almost extinct now.
When was the last one? Vegas?
Yeah.
Right? So, let's see what happens when they get back to it. I think that they're really strong there. The Penske cars are really strong there. So, yeah, let's get to practice. Let's get to qualifying. Let's have a weekend, hopefully free of bad weather, so the fans can come out and enjoy it. And I can't wait for Sunday already.
Let's take a look at the last few winners there at Kansas. We'll go back to the 2020 season with Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. And you got to remember the 2311 teams swept it there in 2022 with Kurt Busch winning the spring race and Bubba Wallace also in the 45 car by that point after Kurt was out. Bubba pretty much dominated the second half of that fall race there at Kansas. I'm not sure if they'll be able to back up the speed that they had since we're another several months into being able to run this car and a full off season in. So those might be some folks that you're going to want to watch. So again, if you want to tune in this weekend, at least just for the Cup Series events, 5 p.m. Eastern time, practice and qualifying from Kansas Speedway on FS1, and then 2 p.m. Eastern time is when race day kicks off on FS1, following with the race at 3 p.m. the Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway. All right, Steve, let's take a look back now. We'll jump back to Dover here for a little bit as we recap the week in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I'll have to admit the fact that I forgot to set my lineup over the weekend. I had all day Sunday where I could have done it. So I remembered kind of first thing in the morning on Monday, you know what, I should probably go ahead and set my lineup. I went ahead and did that, and I thought I had a pretty decent lineup going into this race. I had Chase Elliott in my starting lineup, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and Daniel Suarez. After Suarez's incident really early on in the race, I went to my garage where I had Ryan Blaney sitting, and I was like, I guess I'm going to have to use up one of my Ryan starts. And as we talked about it, Ryan didn't have, the best statistics there at Dover. So I only put him in the garage because he was starting third, and I was like, maybe this is going to be a big track position race. So I kind of reluctantly moved Ryan up into my lineup. And it turns out he ends up getting me the second most points there because Elliott got me 28, Chastain got me 51, Truex got me 49, Harvick got me 21, and Blaney gets me 50. I'm like, man, I'm going to be looking at a top 10 guaranteed. in the finish here, but my featured matchups, I kind of split them down the middle. I picked Chastain over Elliott. That was wrong. Or sorry, I picked Elliott over Chastain. That was wrong. I picked Buescher over Briscoe. That was right. I picked Blaney over Keselowski. That was right. I picked Harvick over Bell, and that ended up being wrong. So I think that's kind of what hurt me a little bit when it came to the final standings, though I did pretty well. Sad to see what you ended up with. So let's hear what your lineup. I'm going to guess your lineup was pretty similar, maybe, but I think maybe you did a little bit better on the featured matchups. But let's see.
Yeah, I had Bell, Hamlin, Blaney, Byron, Harvick, Briscoe. Actually, I started the race with Briscoe in the lineup, and I made the move, got him out of there once I knew he was not doing well. So yeah, Byron was worth 52 points. He was the best point getter on the day. And Ryan was worth 50, and he was the third best. Hamlin was worth 47. He was the fifth best. Bell was worth 36. He was the seventh best. So yeah, I had some really good guys there. I had Chastain over Elliott. I had Briscoe, unfortunately, but Buescher beat him. I had Ryan over Brad. I had Bell over Harvick. So I got 3 of the 4 matchups too. So yeah, and then from there, not bad. I mean, I wasn't number one, but I was pretty close this week.
Yeah, so I unfortunately fell just outside the top 10 in a tie for 12th with 219 points.
Yeah.
If I had my problem on my lineup, compared to yours was probably having Harvick versus maybe Bell or somebody that you had. And you got your 3 out of the 4 featured matchups there too. So unfortunately, I didn't earn enough points there to get to the top 10, but I was really close. But holding down the 10th position, a fan of the show and a fan of our Discord chat, Jordan Daniels there ends up in the 10th position, 222 points. 9th, no hesitation, 223. Another fan of the show and someone we met up with there at Talladega, Joe Bro, 1221, 227 points in the 8th position. 7th, Matt O, 231. 6th, Abby NNK, 232. 5th, Blaniacal, 233. 4th position, your team, Mez12, 236 points. 3rd, Christian Dana, 239. 2nd, Joe Lopez 1, 246. And in the first position this week in the points earned at Dover Motor Speedway for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League is Bears Motor Club with 247 points, just 1 point ahead of the second place position there in Joe Lopez 1. Let's take a look now at the overall standings. I've moved up just slightly in the standings here into 32nd position with 1,949 points. Now let's look at the top 10 in the overall standings. In 10th, the Nutty Gamer, 2,063 points. In 9th, Mez 12, 2,064 points. So you're pulling away from me, and we'll see. I'll see you in the playoffs. In 8th, Blaring Idiots, 2,067. In 7th, the tight race here, Eric D15, 2,068. In 6th, Penske Fan 24, 2,090. In 5th, Blaney's Daisy, 2,098. In 4th, Epic Chickens 1916, 2,105. In 3rd, Christian Dana, 2,124. 2nd, Go Larson, 2,128. In Factory of Sadness 6 holds down the top position overall in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League with 2,144. And they actually were pulling away the last few weeks, and all of a sudden that lead has shrunk. So I'm not sure what happened this week. Hopefully they remember to set a lineup. Maybe they forgot, and that's what happened here, because it's not usual to see Factory of Sadness 6 with a down week like this. So jumping back ahead to Kansas, I mentioned some of the folks that ran really well there the last few years, being Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch. So you can't pick him, but maybe you pick Reddick because the car that he's in. Bubba Wallace. I'm not sure about Logano. The one thing about Logano is when they do struggle one week, they tend to bounce back really, really good. So maybe the 22 is somebody to look at. I think Ryan's definitely at least going to be in my garage. I do want to see what happens in practice and qualifying, though.
Yep. Practice and qualifying like usual. But on the other hand, remember that these the noses are all different for the manufacturers now too.
That's true.
Like I said, we go back to maybe how things went at Vegas to get a little bit better look of like what qualifying looked like or what what teams how they ran, because that's the only mile and a half they've really run so far. Atlanta doesn't count anymore, and I think it makes a little bit of difference with the nose being different. Ryan started third at Vegas, so
I can give you a rundown of the top finishers at Las Vegas earlier this year.
Yeah.
William Byron went to victory lane. Kyle Larson was second. Alex Bowman was third. So that's 3 straight Hendrick cars right there. Bubba Wallace, we mentioned he was fast at Kansas last year. Bubba Wallace finished 4th there. Christopher Bell was 5th. Cindric was 6th, so he showed a little bit of speed. Truex was 7th. Haley was 8th. Harvick was 9th. Suarez was 10th. Ryan ended up finishing 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So 13th, sorry. So right behind Chastain. So if you want to see where guys started, though, Byron started 2nd, finished 1st. Larson started 6th, finished 5th. There are some guys here that start a little bit deeper the next few.
Joey was the pole, right?
I believe, and I'm not sure where he ended up finishing.
Well, he finished last. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
he had an issue.
That's right.
So, but like that's I said, he started first, Ryan started third. So now the adjustment isn't necessarily qualifying. The adjustment is what happens when they race, So, yeah, this weekend could be a really, really good weekend from the mile and a half perspective of what they had coming into the mile and a half this year. So, I can't wait to see. Like you said, see what practice does before you set your lineup.
Yeah.
But then don't forget to set your lineup.
Yeah, that's going to be really important. Or if you're in a tight points race with me, take the week off. Let's see. Let me bump up there a few spots. At least get me back into the top 30. Gosh, every year I hang around the 30s, but we'll see. So I don't know. Bubba Wallace might be somebody I've dropped back into my lineup again this week. Let's see what he can do. Logano, I don't know. Maybe I'm just basing that totally on the fact that when they have a bad race, they always bounce back and run really well the race after that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he and Paul Wolf can put something together. So, But again, as usual, at least Ryan will probably start the week out in my garage, and then I'll base that decision on what happens over the weekend. So, well, Steve, for the most part, I think that wraps up the meat of this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. But we do have something really important to talk about. I know at the top of the show, I mentioned that this was episode 14 of 2023, but actually, in reality, overall, we're at episode 99, right?
99.
So what's that make the next one?
That's right. The next one's special. The next one is a clip show. No, I'm teasing. It's not a clip show, but it is a special edition show. So I want to warn everybody, if you're listening to this, and you listen every week, episode 100 is coming out, we believe Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay, so hurry up, listen to this one. Hurry up and get it in. But make sure you've got your feed set up to get it as soon as it hits your feed, because Wednesday will be, like I said, it's a special edition, episode 100. It would be funny if it was a clip show, wouldn't it?
It's not.
But it's not. It's not. And also, if you know somebody that's always on the fence about, you listen, I don't know, tell them they're going to want to listen to episode 100. They're going to want to. It was really cool. We're very proud of it. And when it comes out on Wednesday, I believe you're going to like it. You should like it. And hopefully you find, like I said, find some friends and make sure they listen to it too.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely is probably our biggest episode of all time. Like you said, we had a lot of fun doing it. It's been a long time coming, getting this one put together, and we're really, really proud of it. Really happy to finally bring this to you. And it's definitely something you're not going to miss. So like Steve said, we're trying to get this one out as soon as possible. We actually wanted to get this out a day earlier, but the rain delay kind of messed things up a little bit. So this is going to be a special midweek episode 100 all time of the Team Blaney podcast, and it's not going to be something you want to miss. So as he said, follow, subscribe, share, tell a friend, do whatever you want, because if even this is the first and only episode somebody listens to, we want them tuned in this week. So But for now, thank you everyone once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. And finally, we want to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on all of their active social media channels.
Yeah, if you go to the Driving for Good that they've got coming up at the end of this month, they're still, they're always taking donations for the Wall of Fame. You can get on that Wall of Fame, and it's a nice little card. And for a donation, I believe, of $50 or more, that card will not only be displayed with your name on it that day, but Ryan does take them down, sign them, and then they will mail them to you. So, even if you can't attend and, but you want to help out and you want to be part of things on this great fundraiser they do, go to the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation page, look for the Wall of Fame, click on that, and go ahead and donate. And like I said, you'll get this nice little keepsake back with Ryan's signature. We did, I think Adam did 2 of them last year, one for Team Blaney, one for himself, and I know we did one. It's a nice little thing we display.
Yeah, definitely one of my most cherished souvenirs that I have, just because the money went to a good cause, and then it also gets sent back to you with a really awesome autograph. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time, which is Wednesday on our 100th episode podcast, right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.